I think we're good. So yesterday, if you were able to tune in to our class and watch the class, we talked about these 3 things. And we began with a survey, and it was a fear survey. And I just wanted to offer anybody the opportunity to taste any of the crickets if you would like to try a cricket. Would anybody like to try a cricket? If you watched yesterday, I mean, I can walk around if anybody.
Are they seasoned?
Very blandly. No. Would you like to try? No? Nathan?
Yeah, I'll try one.
Okay. Would you like to try, Alyssa?
You know what? I'm good.
Peyton? Yeah, Peyton's like, I want to try one. Ken's?
Actually, hold on now.
Yeah? Oh.
It looks a little different. All right, this one looks really good.
M?
Oh my god.
So there was 3 of you that tried it, and how would you describe the flavor to everybody else, just out of curiosity? That's what people were saying yesterday. Sunflower seeds, I heard potato chips. That was an odd one. I'm like, potato chip. Haven't heard that one. Adam. Well, what we were showing, it tastes like croutons to you? Oh. Well, what we were showing by giving them the cricket yesterday is that on the survey, it asks the question about would you eat dry, disgusting insects? And throughout the course of the day, I know you guys only saw one particular class, I had a list of names up. And as we put the names up, there were certain class periods where people had their name up. Yeah, I would do that. And then when I walked around, just as I did to you, they changed their mind and they said no. So it really points out how sometimes people aren't truly honest on surveys. And it might be for whatever reason. It could be you're lying to save your moral obligations of life or something, or you could just be like, I wasn't thinking clearly, that type of thing. So it was kind of a fun way to make that point. I just would like to review with you all on your packets. I want you to turn to the gold sheet that looks like this. Learning Target E, compare and contrast the research methods, and it's all 3 of them typed up for you, and it gives you a really good summary of all of the 3 descriptive research. So I want to go through that fairly quickly as a wrap-up from yesterday. So we will start at the very top. What is the goal of descriptive research in psych? As I mentioned yesterday, go ahead and write this down. It only will describe behavior. That is the goal. I would also, if I were you, star this page because this packet can get overwhelming as you are trying to study for your exam. Either like bookend it or whatever so that you know this is a good note page for you just to kind of review quickly before you take that exam because there's just some good stuff on here. And I would assume some of this you've covered in other classes, and it just might be like a quick refresher. And we can apply it to psych in many different ways, too. So what I ask the students to do, as is stated in Part B, to basically read through this and then say, and read your book and say, what do you see as some benefits and what do you see as some cons in that particular types of research? So starting with naturalistic observation. I'm going to call on your name randomly, but it's all right there. Even if you didn't have an opportunity to do it, it's right there for you, okay? So let's just, as a refresher for each of us, we'll start. Justin, what's some good things about naturalistic observation?
I was talking about, right there, it said that the participants react normally, as they do.
And we definitely want to see that, where we want to see a normal reaction if we're trying to observe really their natural behaviors, when in the past we've been able to bring our little kids in, as I mentioned to you guys before. Is this a natural observation for us to observe preschool kids? Absolutely not. Does their behavior change when they come in this building? Immediately. I mean, it changed. This is a very sterile setting compared to their preschool. You know, they're used to having all the bells and whistles of what a preschool offers for them. And so if we truly wanted to have a good observation of those preschoolers, it would be more beneficial for us if we could take us out of here and go and observe them there. In my old classroom that I used to have upstairs, if you guys know where I'm talking about, before they did the major remodel, there was a window on my wall. And when they did the remodel, I said, can we make this a two-way mirror? Because I could see into the courtyard. And I'm like, wouldn't that be really cool? We could do like some observations of students out there, and they wouldn't even know. It'd be kind of creepy. Oh, I have extras. Yeah. Yeah. So I always make a few extras if that ever happens. Not a problem at all. So you guys, I'd rather you do just what Andrew did, speak up, than just sit there and be like, oh, follow along type of thing. So give me another pro. What else do you think? Alyssa. Here you go. You can find it. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it's that it's kind of like it's not a control, so like you can see everything naturally, but it's also that you don't have to do anything to affect how it turns out, so you might have more time to observe and write stuff down than if you have to actually set it up or kind of stuff like that.
And I also like how you said more time, because that's actually going to be a pro, but it's also a con. Because this is it could be very time consuming, which in the end, if you're paying for a researcher to do the research, it can be quite costly, because you're not always going to get the results you want. And so you have to keep watching and keep observing. Did you guys have an opportunity to go out into your own neighborhood and do a 3-minute observation? Did anybody do it? Okay, a couple of you. So those of you who did it, did you guys see anything? Huh? An ant. I heard people saying that yesterday too. An ant, any human life interaction yesterday when you were out there? Okay, so you saw like a 4-legged animal. You guys see any human?
Human interaction between two humans or just a single?
Any?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so when you were recording behavior, did anybody find it difficult to record the behavior and watch at the same time? So although videotaping is very, nice, why would videotaping be hard to do when you're observing in the natural setting? Because if they see you videotaping, they know exactly what you're doing, and also you are infringing on privacy rights too, so you got to be quite careful about that. So do you think it'd be hard to maintain your focus beyond 3 minutes of doing something like that? As most people said yesterday, yeah, definitely that would be very difficult. 30 minutes, 3 hours, just kind of watching. I mean, my mind would start to daydream a bit and think about what's going on tonight or this weekend. So for negatives of naturalistic observation, we have it's time consuming. You have no control is a big one. You have no control. The researcher has no control, whether it's going to happen, whether it doesn't happen. And if I'm looking for particular behaviors, I don't think this is listed on there, but I would add that. If I'm a researcher and I'm looking for particular behaviors, I'm going to be more biased where I'm going to just key into that behavior. Let me explain. If I think you're a bad kid because I heard from a teacher, oh my God, you have John Smith. Oh, watch out, John Smith's a bad kid. What do some teachers do when John Smith enters their classroom? They start looking for every little thing John Smith does wrong, even though you could be doing the exact same thing. And we all do this. It's not just a teacher thing. If we have a preconceived notion, we tend to kind of key in on that. So maybe a better example for some of you, if you play sports at all, your parents maybe have that, they call it tunnel vision, where they only watch you, and then they see you doing really well and you never making a mistake. So a teacher or somebody else and a researcher could do the exact same thing. If I was researching something, I might only look for those behaviors And I might really be particularly biased if I kind of see the behavior, but not fully enough because I'm trying so hard to get my research behind me. So you have to be really cautious that you don't have somebody that's got an agenda, I guess is the best way to say that. All right, that's observation. Survey, that we talked a little bit about that. What's the benefit of a survey, Nathan?
You can like ask a bunch of people in a very large group.
Yeah. You got a large amount of people, and it's not as lengthy. It's going to be a fairly quick process if you think about technology and how quickly you can throw out a ton of surveys to a lot of people. Mitchell, do you see any negatives to surveys?
People could lie.
Yep. People say what's socially acceptable type of thing. Anybody else have any negatives to surveys? M?
I had difficulty being in-depth knowledge.
Yeah, and honestly, all of these you should write somewhere on the side for every single one of these. As I wrote something over here, you cannot explain the why. None of these give you the why in the behavior, and that's key. Because in psychology, truly, you guys, we want to be able to explain the why. We not only want to know, 1,000 people responded to this survey and this is what they said, but it's difficult to explain, well, why is that behavior that way? The reasoning behind it is lacking, is basically what we're saying. I think, and also, did you guys put this down from yesterday too? For surveys, you have to be very careful for the wording because they can be written in a biased fashion. And as I mentioned yesterday to a lot of classes, I said, we are entering a time as your senior year with the political races that are going on. And I'm not going to stand up here and say any political message or anything to you, but please, please, please be a very informed person as you hear the polls coming in and they give you survey numbers, that you use your research knowledge, that you're a little bit more analytical as you look at those numbers and say, well, where are these numbers coming from? Was it a representative population that they actually surveyed? And where did they get these numbers from? And was the wording biased too? We don't know that usually. The case study is on the back side. So what do we have for a case study? This is one we didn't even talk about. First thing I'd like you guys to make sure you write down, you can write it anywhere in case study, it says, it gives you detailed information about an individual. Please include or group. Because that is a test question, and a lot of kids get hung up on that because they think case study is only an individual, but it's not. You could actually do a case study on 10-year-olds, and I'm following a group of 10-year-olds that we pre-selected through the course of their school year to see how they react to, a particular thing on the playground. I don't know. Nothing's coming to me right now. But you understand that it could be a particular group. So what is our benefit, Peyton, of a case study?
You get a lot more information than the other two research methods.
Definitely. Yep. So it gives you the more in-depth information, but then in turn, what your payoff or what your trade-off for that in-depth information, Ken's? Yeah, like what's the trade-off? Like even though you're going to get some good in-depth information. Yeah, that was not what I was thinking, but you're right about that. It definitely doesn't represent. Come here, baby. Follow me over here. There we go. So case studies, I'm going to say what you were saying first. Case studies only represent really that particular person or group that you are studying. And usually it's a very odd, crazy thing. Like, let me give you an example. We're going to do a little bit of background information during our social unit on a girl her name was Jeannie. And she was found in the state of California from the time she was a baby. She was found at about the age of 11, and she was found tied to her crib. And she was never, ever released from her crib, ever. So she was very malnourished. She couldn't speak at all. At the age of 11, she looked like she was like 7. She looked very little and young. She was very much abused, okay, through this course. They followed her because what they wanted to do is they wanted to not only see if they could actually make her better, but there were 2 interesting things about psych with her. They wanted to see if they could teach her how to speak correctly, because at such a young age, there's not a lot of people out there that haven't learned how to speak English or your native language. At the age of 11, she could only grunt like it, almost kind of like ape-like. That's all she could say, is make those animal-like sounds. Number 2, they were interested if they could get her attached to people. Basically, be trustworthy and love another human being. That took a course of a time, but they followed her years and years and years, these researchers, to see if they could actually see if that happened. That doesn't happen to you and I. None of us in this room have ever experienced living like that. She was a rare instance, she was a rare case. So the benefit of a case study is we learn something very unusual about people, but the negative is it can be very time consuming and it doesn't apply to a lot of people. So I kind of hit on a couple of the negatives as I was asking Kenzie before on that. I think that's about it for those 3 things. How do we feel about descriptive research for observation surveys and case studies? Does anyone have any questions about that stuff? If you didn't catch it yesterday, this is learning target number 20 to 24. So what I would like us to do is move on to our new learning target for our goal for today then, and that's learning target E. E's learning target is explain correlational studies, and so to rewrite that for 25 to 27 on your vocab chart is what we're focusing in on today. You guys can rewrite it. What is correlation research? So you're writing it in a particular form of a question instead of the statement. Oh, I'm sorry, not E, it's F. I apologize. I mustn't have had my glasses on when I was writing that this morning. So, learning target F. What is explain correlation? And then what is correlation research? And this is, as I mentioned, number 25 to 27 on your vocab chart. So how are the vocab charts going? I just want to kind of pause for a second and see if anybody has any questions about those. I always like to bring up other... Oh, go ahead, Mackenzie.
I was just wondering, do you know what, I probably mispronounced it, Gestalt psych would be at, or?
Gestalt is how you pronounce it. Gestalt, that will not be on your test, but you should have it filled out for the vocab chart. If it is, it should be in your book. If it's not in the book under this chapter, it is in your book under another chapter. Okay, so just go back to like the index, and then you can look it up and see where it's at. If anybody needs any help with that, I can definitely help you too. I always try to give you guys the questions that other students give me, just because I always think that maybe you have the same question, but you're just not willing to ask it. But anyway, I had a student yesterday ask me, I'm really kind of struggling with the real-world examples. And I said, it doesn't have to come from yourself, and I mentioned this at the beginning. It could come from the book example, or it could come from an example we do in class, too. So the examples can come from really anything.
So I was just like, I think earlier, like maybe we could go back from like Thursday or Friday of last week, some of the examples in the book like were really different from how you taught them in class, so that kind of confused me a little bit too. Would you say like focus more on what the book is giving us examples of, or focus on your examples? 'Cause, like,
I'd say both.
okay.
And if you're having a difficult time blending the analogy of how I do it to the other one in the book, just ask me. I guess I teach it the way it makes sense to me in my head. So, yeah, if there's something particular, don't be afraid to just say, hey, the book is saying this. Is this different than what you just said? Those are the questions that are good questions to come back with. Anything else, you guys? Okay, so let's talk about Learning Target F, correlational research. So this is also a form of descriptive research as it only will predict behavior. You'll see I've underlined this because it's vitally important, and I will say this all year long. And they love, College Board loves to test you on this. Correlation does not mean causation ever. So my stats kids out there, if you had AP Stats last year, or if you're in it currently, this is going to serve you very well, this particular area of this chapter, because it will be either a review because you took it before, or it's going to be as you get to it in AP Stats, right around the AP exam. It's going to be a nice review for yourself. So correlation does not mean causation. So you can't say, when it rains outside, then I know it's going to rain outside because my knees start hurting. So what you're saying by that is you're saying, if you've ever heard an older person say this, probably not you guys so much, but if you've ever heard an older person saying that, what they're saying is, I'm correlating my knees hurting to it predicting that the rain is going to come. And you can't say that. You can show all the numbers and you can show the strength of a relationship, but you can't say one predicts the other. Probably a better example would be people that play video games are very violent people. We've heard that through a ton of different opponents to video games throughout the years. And maybe they don't use the word very violent people, but they might say they're violent, okay? So like you'll see somebody doing some random act of terribleness. They went on a rampage and they killed a bunch of people. Then they did a study and they looked at this person and they said, well, he grew up playing a lot of really violent video games. What that person is trying to say is video games cause violence. In a correlational research, you could say this: playing video games, you may be more prone to a violent behavior, but one does not cause the other. And you can never say that. So we're going to do some practice on this, get your ideas formulated as well. But I just want you to know this is going to be hit pretty hard as we go through this, as well as throughout the year. We're going to talk about correlational coefficients. We're going to talk about -1. Correlational coefficient numbers go from -1 to +1. Hard time seeing, guys? That a little better? So -1 to +1. Again, this is probably a review for some of you guys. The symbol, negative and positive, actually tells you the direction. The number gives you the strength. And that's where most people that don't have a lot of experience with this, if they get questions wrong, that's where they get the question wrong, because it's very easy to look at -0.88 and say, oh, that's not a very strong relationship because negative sounds low to us. But negative in this context, we are not talking about that. We're talking about what type of correlation it is. So that's where we're going to go today. Hopefully when you leave here, you feel pretty confident about that. And I'm going to be here to help you. So what I would like you guys to do now is to actually turn to the first, what kind of color do you want us to call this one? Buff, thank you. The first buff sheet. And it looks like this. And it says, what is psychological research trying to prove with correlation? That's at the top. So what I would like you guys to do with your partners, I kind of set you up with little groups, is I would like you to give this a shot. This was supposed to be homework, but I want us to do this here in class, and then we're going to go over these answers. So I was sitting you together in hopes that if you're struggling, that maybe your partner can also help you through with some of these, okay? So go ahead. If you want to use your book or one of my books, you can. If you want to use your phones for help on information, that's fine as well too. So just let me know. The only thing, I'm not going to come over and say, this is the answer. We're going to go over them. Go ahead. Chat with each other. Sorry. So I'm moving this so that you guys can see, hopefully, the board.
That's still positive. Yeah. No, I'm confused.
What's wrong?
Well, the whole thing is it's not causation, so when you're writing about a positive correlation between the square footage and room size, like I wrote the more square footage, the higher student satisfaction formally.
So,
That's
yeah.
causation, is it not? Technically, or does that work?
You lost me.
No, it's okay. It's
Slow
okay.
down, slow down.
So, I'm just kind of wondering if I worded saying that basically the square, like the higher square footage of the room, the more square footage, the higher student satisfaction is for positive correlation. Is that an okay way to word it? Because I'm saying that the more square footage causes, that doesn't seem like a correlation because you said it doesn't.
No, as long as you don't say the word cause.
It works.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm going to tomorrow, let me see yours. I have a little sheet. Yeah, here. So we're going to open by saying which one of these words can actually be used that don't show what we're trying, that show correlational coefficient without saying causation. Okay? So that's how we're going to, like you can't use the word cause, but you could use the word tend, right? You could say maybe it's connected or related, but you couldn't say effects. Or I'm sorry, you couldn't say let me see which one. Now I'm getting all confused too. But you were correct on that. Oh, get. Get was the other one. You couldn't say. Yeah, make a graph off to the side. Is that the question, you guys? Okay.
So, when I read the book, I understood negative correlation as like one going up and one going down.
One goes down. That's correct.
In this case, to get negative, or in the question number 2, you said that the student satisfaction would go down as a result of room size going down, but that's not opposite, so that wouldn't be negative correlation. would it?
No, no. So a negative correlation, one has to go up and one has to go down.
Okay.
So think of the impossible. A kid, what would,
Very satisfied with a smaller.
yeah, which probably isn't realistic, but that's the correct answer.
Okay, that makes more sense. So if I said that student satisfaction went down as room size went up, that would be a negative correlation.
That's correct. And then for positive relationship, both have to go in the same direction. Okay?
No correlation. Is that when?
What's that?
What about no correlation? Is that when there's just no?
That means like it would just be random. Like you've got 1,000 people and we don't see any relationship with room size and satisfaction at all. Like some people are like, yeah, whatever. And some people are happy, some people are sad. There's just not a, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Clarifying points for you guys. Good. You guys you're almost done. Good. You down to here?
I haven't got there.
I haven't.
Okay. How are we doing, guys? Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. How are you guys? Any questions? So we want a scatter plot.
Oh, a scatter plot? Okay.
So it's going to look more like this. Yep.
That would be.
Yep, just like that. That's perfect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's in between positive and no, because like honestly it's like positive, because like going up, at like 150, that's kind of in the middle, right?
But
there.
no is going to literally be all over the board.
Oh.
So if you took your line, if you connected the dots, which way is that going? Yeah.
Positive.
Yeah, yeah. And now we know it's going up, but how strong is the relationship? Now that's what you were talking about. So the strength of the relationship. We know it's going in the positive direction, but we're not quite sure about, it's not perfect, because perfect would be a line that goes, connecting fully. So you're going to take kind of a random guess when you look at that, like how strong of a relationship would you be? I'm going to tell the students this tomorrow, but you're never going to have to calculate in this class, like compute the actual correlate. You just have to take it like an educated guess. Okay? Yeah, that's good. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, scatter. Yes, that's perfect. Yep, that's what you want.
I heard you say scatter plot. I'm like, oh my god, I forgot how to do that.
Yeah, just like. Yep.
It is a more I'd say correlation. Because,
Definitely.
Yeah, because it's the way I see it, it's more going like that. Oh. True.
Yeah. So how did you create yours?
We scaled it from 0 to get the.
Oh. Okay. Well.
Like halfway through, we realized we probably could have just started at 100.
Yeah, probably could have.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah.
I started at 100, but you're still getting a result of a positive. But now, as I was mentioning to these guys, tomorrow we're going to talk about this, but you're never going to have to compute a correlational coefficient. Like statistically, you're not going to have to figure out mathematically for this class. But you need to be able to make an educated guess, like how. So this is telling you the direction. Now, how strong do you think that relationship is? And what would you guys guess or estimate that at?
0.7.
Okay.
I don't know. Low though. I don't think it's very
Because would 1 be a linear line?
Correct.
Okay.
That would be a perfect.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to go a little bit lower.
And what about the two of you? What would you say?
It looks pretty. I mean, it's like angled up.
Their graph is a bit hard to view, but so what would you what would you no, not poor Nathan. What would you take an estimated guess at?
So we go
So, as I was mentioning, at about 30 something minutes or whatever, this part shuts down, which is where you hear me. Yeah, and then this keeps, so I have to like look down. I don't know why. It must be its lifespan. Or I also wonder if it's inactive. Like, you know how I wasn't teaching and you guys were? So, like, I wonder if it just kind of goes into a sleep mode. I don't know. I would assume that there's some type of mechanical button that if I push this and, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this year goes. You guys finished over there? You guys are wrapping up? You guys are finished? And you guys are wrapping up. So our goal for tomorrow, and I know you're not going to be in class, but what I would like to do is as the other students enter, we're going to actually go over these answers. I'm going to do a couple checking for understanding questions. So if you tune in, then you can just make sure you're correct and you're accurate with your answers. And as I was just kind of spot checking, it looked like almost everybody was right where they needed to be. So the biggest confusion I can tell you about correlation coefficient on tests, they always love to give you a question where it sounds right, but because they use some type of word that shows causation, you have to say, no, that's not right. So I'll give you a couple of those examples too in their wording on how they do that. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy the rest of your just all your classes that you have, and it sounds like we have some activities going on tonight. So I know Morgan plays volleyball, and then we have the Hackett twins. You guys are in choir and theater.
I play tennis too.
Okay, and Emily, you are cross country, right?
Cross country.
And cross country too. Is there something going on tonight for cross?
No, we have a day off.
Oh, good for you. Anything going on over here for extracurricular for anybody out? Your cross, gentlemen? Yeah, that's all right. Does anybody have part-time jobs? Where do you work, guys?
Blaine's Power Fleet. Formerly Blaine's Power.
Why is it now Walmart?
Huh?
You work.
No.
Oh, got it. Got it. Where are you working, Nathan? Okay. Girls, anybody have a job over here? You're at Alpine Tennis? Yeah, that is. I mean, you're doing something. Peyton, do you work for Bissell's?
Yep, Brad.
Mm-hmm. He lives down the street from me. Yeah. Over and out, peeps.